Previously on Anonymous Animation Critic.
Let's hope 2020 is better. Disney and Pixar will finally release movies that are not sequels. I don't want to have my expectations too high though. There's gonna be a Scooby-Doo movie, and I don't know what to say, but at least looks nice. Sony will release 2 movies, and oh no, oh no, oh no!
We all know 2020 was not a good year for reasons that I don't need to mention, but despite having seen less movies than in 2019, there were still some great things that really made me forget about everything that's happening in the world. Movies are, for me, and I think many, an escape from reality and to experience amazing things. Most of the films on this list don't meet that quota, but a few of them do. Without further ado, in this quick video, I'll talk about all 2020 films I watched while ranking them from worst to best. Alright, let's start from the very bottom with this convoluted piece of shit. I made a whole review, so I will be pretty quick. This is supposed to be a Scooby-Doo film, but it was so busy setting up a cinematic universe that it forgot to make its characters memorable, well-developed, or at least likable. Nothing in this movie makes any sense. None of the characters are characters. The villain is a joke. The cameos and references to other Hanna-Barbera properties are awkward and distracting. I know there might have been worse films this year, but hey, I'm talking about films I watched, right? Filler Nonsense the movie. You know, I don't even know why I watched this. I was probably drunk or high. It's just a series of unfunny gags that have nothing to do with the plot. I could have ranked this one lower than Scoob and deem it the worst film of the year, but at least this one didn't want to set up a cinematic universe nonsense. Corey Edwards, the director of Hoodwinked, made this, and man, Hoodwinked feels like a work of fucking genius compared to this bullshit. You know what? I don't even know why I included this. I just started watching it, got bored, sped up the film, and then decided, yeah, 1 out of 5, and then moved on. I don't even know why this film is here. This film is just an ad for Camp Coral, which disgusts me. Stephen Hillenburg died. Let him rest in peace and end SpongeBob. Cancel the production of Camp Coral because you know that's not what he wanted. If he wanted to do a SpongeBob prequel spin-off thing, he would have done it while he was still alive, right? In memory of Stephen Hillenburg? Fuck off. The film makes no sense at all. The story is just the hero's journey with nothing new added. The celebrity cameos are cringeworthy. The film looks great. I mean, I like how it looks. It's a 3D animated film with a look that's faithful to the show's 2D look. But what's the point of that if the film is completely insufferable? 3 Netflix films in a row, eh? Oh my god, this was so boring. The voice acting is terrible. The girl is annoying. The animation looks weird, like a video game cutscene. The action is cool, I guess, but it really means nothing because I don't care about any of the characters. This film is a bad attempt at the Disney musical. I also made a video about this, so I will be quick. The production design is pretty cool looking, I guess. Sometimes the film gets visually interesting, but the songs are bad. The characters are either underdeveloped, generic, or unlikable. The ending is rushed and stupid. It's cool to see an American film actually trying to have an Asian character and show a bit of her culture in a tasteful manner, unlike some other movies. But overall, what a letdown. It's nice to see these characters back in what feels like a new episode of the series 5 years after it ended, but it was really nothing that special to me. The animation is TV quality and the humor is hit or miss. When it hits, it's funny though. This film made me not want to watch anything from director Makoto Shinkai anymore. He makes corny, heterosexual fantasies where the shy boy gets the cute girl. It's so boring and dated. All his female characters are bland or idolized. His male characters are incels or straight up perverts. I was invested in the journey of the protagonist of this film. His struggles were compelling at first, but when we get to the climax, he just becomes so inexplicably unlikable, selfish, and idiotic. I don't like this movie at all. Just don't watch it. There were moments in this film that were so magical and so beautiful that I thought it was gonna be in my top 3. There are so many sequences that were just so visually mesmerizing. The production design is absolutely gorgeous, and there were some moments where the cinematography is simply incredible. But the story kinda led me confused, and I kinda lost interest by the 40-minute mark. The film just becomes needlessly convoluted, and while it's less than 2 hours long, it feels like 3 hours. And by the end of it, I was not interested in revisiting it again just to get what the hell happened. But my god, one thing I do remember is the last 30 minutes, which has some of the most insane visuals I've ever seen. It's just a trip. Maybe I'm dumb and I didn't get the movie, so sorry, I'm not as smart as I think I am, I admit it. I was much more positive at first with this film, but I think I gave it way too much credit just for its stylized animation alone. Without it, it's just a mediocre story about horribly unlikable dipshit weirdos who are the protagonist's parents for some reason. I don't know if that's accurate to the original book it's based on, but Jesus Christ, instead of being funny, watching these parents genuinely willing to murder their children is just horrifying. I couldn't find the joke. Also, add that the ending is just so goddamn dumb. And can studios stop hiring Maya Rudolph? She's fucking everywhere. She's like a female Seth Rogen or James Corden. She's in Big Hero 6, she's in Shrek the Third, she's here, she's gonna be in Connected. She's even in indie animation like My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea, which is a great film you should watch. But like, is she the cheapest actress out there or something? God damn it. Well, at least she was in this cinematic gem, so I forgive her. I like the first Shaun the Sheep movie for what it wanted to be. A simple, charming story told with no dialogue. It doesn't aim high, but it wasn't trying to do so. A couple flaws, sure, but overall, the first one is a solid film, and the sequel is kinda on the same level, but some of the gags were a bit uncreative and cheesy. The story is just basically, let's help the alien go back home, which just feels so random compared to the previous film. Like, this feels like it could have been the 3rd, 4th, or 100th film in the series, not the second one. That's why it's so bizarre that they decided to continue the series with this story. But okay, whatever. I love the references, the animation, the production design. Some of the gags were hilarious. So yeah, overall, it's a decent film, but not nearly as good as the first. Onward was interesting, I think. I remember being excited to see this film because it was the first original Pixar film in almost 3 years. Original in quotes, of course, because this movie is one of the most safe, bland, cookie-cutter films in the entire Pixar catalog. It's directed by Dan Scanlon, the director of Monsters University, and knowing how Monsters University, while fun and entertaining, was filled with college movie cliches, I think I should have expected the same here. Dan Scanlon lost his father when he was very young, and I admire that he took that experience as an inspiration to make this film. But there were just so many elements that felt so unoriginal and predictable. Like how Barley tries to cast the spell to resurrect their father, and after a few attempts he can't do it. And at that point it's so obvious that it's Ian the one who has to do it. And yeah, it was him. Whoa. One thing I have to say is that this was the last film I saw in theaters before theaters closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And while it has unoriginality problems, it was still a fun time. I liked some of the humor and I liked some of the production design. It's gonna be weird that I say this, but I think I liked the music that plays during the Disney Pixar opening logos. Damn. One last problem I have with the film is with the cast. It's so obvious that Tom Holland and Chris Pratt were hired not only because they worked with Disney, but also, well, they were in the Avengers, they must have chemistry, right? They must be good working together, right? Except their performances were just so bland, and Chris Pratt was just so fucking annoying. I should end this review with a positive though, and that's the ending. At least the ending was not what I was expecting, and I think I liked the idea. It was just the execution of the climax what I didn't really like, since it felt a lot like it tried to be like Inside Out, but overall, good for the writers for thinking about an ending that was not as predictable as it could have been. And now we get into the top 3. These 3 movies made this shit year worthwhile and reminded me why I love animation more than any other medium. Number 3 is Wolfwalkers. I love this film so much, and I don't really know why. It was such an engaging, interesting, magical journey that features gorgeous animation, gorgeous cinematography, great production design, and amazing performances from pretty much everyone. I was on board with Robin. She's such a likable, relatable, well-written protagonist, and the friendship she develops with Meb feels genuine and compelling. I usually hate child actors because they can't act, but they were simply amazing here. This film is also a great example on how you can make a film feel so unique and original, even if you're not using an original concept as a basis, because the concept is basically evil village people don't like wolves. Its themes of intolerance and prejudice are nothing new, but it's the way it was executed what makes this one of the most magical experiences in recent memory. I love the music. I loved how the line art becomes much more loose and fuzzy to emphasize emotions. I loved how the lack of perspective in some scenes is reminiscent of ancient Irish art. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think I forgot everything from my art class at college. Nonetheless, I loved how purposeful all the stylistic choices were, including instances where the aspect ratio changed. I just can't continue talking about this because no words coming from me will ever properly explain how great this film was and how it became my favorite film from Cartoon Saloon. These guys are awesome. Number 2 is Soul. Don't be fooled by the trailers and the controversy surrounding the trend of turning people of color into animals, which sucks, I agree, but Pete Docter brought us a tasteful and respectful representation of African American culture. It's so great to see that this film has an all African American cast, which is probably the reason Disney decided to cancel the theatrical release then dump it on Disney Plus, because they thought that they couldn't censor the film for Chinese or Russian markets, or else it would be completely incoherent, so why lose money, right? But hey, let's not talk about that. Disney, you bastard. I now see why you did it. To begin with, this is the first Pixar film since Ratatouille and probably WALL-E that feels so rich and mature that only adult audiences will fully enjoy it. Pete Docter's previous films such as Inside Out and Up are still family-friendly films since they deal with simple themes that can be great for kids to learn about. But Soul? I loved how this film decided to convey all its existential themes, questioning our purpose, what's the real meaning of happiness, and what's the real meaning of life. Sure, it has some awkward tonal shifts, but wow, I'm so impressed with how interesting the story was and how engaging the journey of Joe Gardner is. The production design is so gorgeous. I love the contrast between the hyper-realistic New York City and the dreamlike Great Before and Beyond, which I just like to call Soulward, so let's go with that. The cinematography is probably one of the best I've seen in any film, including live action, from last year. I absolutely loved the lighting, the colors, everything. I was worried that 22 would be some sort of a worse version of Dory, but she turned out to be an interesting character and much more likable than I expected. But her design is a bit dumb. Just remove that big teeth there and she looks much better. The music is fantastic. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a fantastic job, and I just hope they get nominations for original score for their work here. And the jazz compositions were also so great. The emotional climax, which is like a Pixar trope at this point, is probably one of the most beautiful things my eyes have seen in recent memory. I don't know what else to say, other than it's a concept that was executed so well. My only 2 issues though is the excessive amount of exposition and the ending. There were points where the exposition was just a bit awkward and ham-fisted, and the ending felt a bit rushed, since it felt like it ended a bit too quickly. Spoilers! I'm not saying that I wanted to know what happened to 22, Because honestly, it would have been like the cheesiest thing if there was like a final sequence where an old Joe and a young 22, now as a real person, found each other again, and somehow like the old Joe recognized 22 and they smile at each other and then roll credits. So yeah, that would have ruined the film. And not knowing what happened with 22 was actually something I liked. It's just the way it suddenly ended was just a bit awkward. Overall, I just want to say, how is it this film got made under the Disney name? I expect movies like Onward to be released by Disney since it feels so cookie cutter and factory made, but Soul is such an interesting case because it almost feels like an art house film at some points. Not as much as Brad Bird's Pixar films, but still, how is it that this film got made? And my favorite film from 2020 is The Wolf House. This film blew my mind. I just couldn't believe how this film was made. The directors of this film are just insane for using an entire house to create this stop-motion film which features fully animated wall paintings, human-sized puppets, and no use of CGI. This film is simply insane. The film is about Maria, a girl who ends up in a mysterious house in the middle of the forest, and we, along with her, are treated to some of the most haunting, disturbing environments in a film from recent memory. The atmosphere, the cinematography, the sound design, all those elements make this film a truly haunting and anxiety-inducing experience.
Maria.
What I like about the film is that you can watch it without the context on the real story that inspired the film. Without context, you could interpret it as some sort of isolation story, but if you look up the story of Colonia Dignidad in Chile, the film takes a whole new meaning, and everything that happens in the film starts to make much more sense and starts to draw parallels to the events the film is based on. It was such a nightmarish experience that will probably give you nightmares for days. I watched this film long ago 2 times, and I am still thinking about so many images, sounds, and voices. This is such an interesting, well done horror film in which there isn't a single jump scare. It pushes stop motion animation to its absolute limits. And to end things up, it's only 75 minutes long. So you really have no excuse to not check it out. I absolutely recommend this to anyone, especially film enthusiasts and artists, because if you're one of those, I beg you to check it out and take notes from this absolute masterpiece. Thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe and follow me on Letterboxd. Bye.